Welcome, Leah. If it's okay, I want to introduce you to everyone really quick.
Sure.
Because we know you because we love your podcast. And I know that a few of the other people here were so excited to hear that you were going to be here. We see all the little hands clapping for you because they know. But I also was a little bit, what do you call that when you go spying on people? I stalked you on Wikipedia and I learned even more awesome things about you. So Leah is a professor at the University of Michigan, which we knew, and the co-host of Strict Scrutiny, which is an award-winning podcast on the Supreme Court. If you don't listen to it, it sounds like it might make you cry, and it will, but it will also make you laugh. Allison, can you take over introducing her? Because
I would love
my
to.
eyes are so bad. I was right.
Yes. So as Andrea said, co-host of Strict Scrutiny, she's won many, many awards in her legal profession. As a law professor, she's currently at the University of Michigan. She has won the L. Hart Wright Teaching Award, which we think is the
students voted for you. I love that.
Pretty awesome. She's won the Early Career Scholars Medal from the American Law Institute, the Ruth Bader Ginsburg Scholar Award from the American Constitution Society, Professor of the Year Award for 2019 at UC Irvine School of Law, where she was prior to Michigan. And as we said, Strict Scrutiny has won an AMBI Award for the best politics or opinion podcast. And it really is.
It's so good.
It makes listening to the things coming out of the Supreme Court tolerable. Well, I don't know if tolerable is the right word, but it lets us do it.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I think there's a lot more on our list, but maybe that's enough for right
Yes. So as someone who we admire so much and who's so accomplished in a field of that we don't know as much about, thank you for being here to help inspire us and educate us a little bit. So welcome, Leah.
And those are the questions if you want to. Yeah.
Thank you for having me. So I was just going to kind of talk about a few things that are related to the stakes of the election related to freedom, but I kind of want to limit my remarks to 10 minutes. And so if there are issues that you all are curious about, please put them in the chat, and I'm happy to touch on those, after I kind of highlight the three things that I had wanted to, and we can kind of go from there. I apologize to those of you who might listen to the podcast. Some of this might be duplicative because we just did a series on Project 2025 where we literally read all of the 900 pages of their policy agenda to familiarize ourselves with what exactly they were planning so we could inform people about that, because sometimes you hear about Project 2025 in the ether in general terms like, oh, wow, that's crazy, that's wild, that's weird. And we dug into it and it turns out it's somehow worse than the general descriptions really get at. So I wanted to cover three things that I think are really at stake in the upcoming election, but there are many more. So the three things that I wanted to cover were: one, reproductive freedom. Second is using the federal government's coercive power to basically go after political opponents and perceived enemies. And then the third is kind of dismantling the government and handing it over to the Elon Musks of the world. Yes. These are three things, all of which that I think will greatly affect our freedom if and when they are implemented, even to the smallest degree. So on reproductive freedom, some of the things that Project 2025 lays out are things that Donald Trump's supporters and the people surrounding him have explicitly called for, including his vice presidential running mate, J.D. Vance. So I'm going to tick through some of these things, but truly happy to answer anything or go into more specifics later on. One is the Project 2025 calls for the enforcement of a federal law known as the Comstock Act. This is also something that J.D. Vance has specifically endorsed. The Comstock Act is an 1873 law that was passed in the Victorian era, and it prohibits the transportation through the mails of immoral or licentious activity or items. And the law specifically defines as immoral or licentious items anything that can be used to procure or perform an abortion. So under this wild view, they believe there is a current law on the books that would allow them to prosecute any doctor who performs abortions because they probably use medical equipment that went through the mail. They also believe this law currently on the books allows them to prosecute anyone who distributes medication abortion, again, because that probably went through the mail. So the terrifying thing about this prospect is right now, there's lots of talk about whether Donald Trump would sign a federal abortion ban in the event that Republicans win the House and the Senate and they pass one. But that isn't determinative about whether these guys are going to try to implement and enforce a federal abortion ban because they think they already have the tools to do so. All they need is a Republican president and a Republican attorney general who's willing to try to enforce this law. I see a question in the chat about what if this is sent via UPS, FedEx, or DHL. The slight problem with using that as a defense is imagine you are an abortion provider and you have all of your medical equipment currently in stock. It would be really difficult to prove that everything went through private mail rather than federal mail. And it's not also clear whether the Comstock Act would be limited to, let's say, the United States Postal Service versus just being transported in interstate mail. So that is one thing that is definitely on the table in the event of a second Donald Trump administration. This is something that, again, his team and his allies have specifically talked about in the press. The lawyer who argued his case in the Supreme Court about whether he should be disqualified from appearing on the ballot for participating in the January 6th insurrection literally gave a quote to the New York Times in which he said, "We, that is Republicans and the anti-abortion lobby, shouldn't be talking about this Comstock Act before the election. Let's keep it on the DL so nobody knows that we have this in the works and we can just institute it in the event we're elected, since everybody knows a federal abortion ban and abortion bans in general are wildly unpopular." In addition to just enforcing a federal abortion ban based on a zombie-like Victorian-era law, the Project 2025 has several other weird shit that they propose doing for reproductive freedom. Another is getting the Food and Drug Administration, the agency that is in charge of approving, drugs and food as they can be available on the market. They say that the FDA should reverse the approval of one of the drugs in the medication abortion protocol. That would make it illegal to distribute mifepristone in the United States. So that too would amount to a federal ban on the current protocol for medication abortion. Again, it wouldn't require them to pass a law or go through Congress. This is something they can just do if they appoint someone crazy enough to lead the FDA. And newsflash, they've identified a bunch of really crazy people who are probably going to do their bidding if and when they appoint them to the federal government. The third thing that they propose doing under the reproductive freedom category is they want to institute a system that requires states to report all information about abortions and miscarriages to the federal government. They say they will literally threaten the states with withdrawing money, federal money that is used for healthcare and health insurance, if the states do not report this information to a person that they are going to designate as some new federal official. This is the person that, the Harris campaign has referred to as the abortion czar, which I think is pretty accurate terminology given what they are envisioning. But again, they are going to require people to be reporting information, not just about abortions, but also miscarriages, since of course, they think they are in a position to judge whether you experienced a miscarriage or whether you received an unlawful abortion instead. this is, of course, deranged and terrifying. If you want to think about like what this looks like, that is what the world that Project 2025 is envisioning, I would highly encourage you all to look at this ad that the Lincoln Project put together. The Lincoln Project is, a group of anti-Trump Republicans, and they put together a short video social media ad that is available on social media. And it basically imagines a world and shows, a police officer pulling over a father and his daughter on the side of the road and then attempting to arrest them, when he accuses them of crossing state lines to obtain an abortion. That is just some of what they are planning with respect to reproductive freedom. And I focused on the things that don't actually require them to win control of both houses. That is, these are just the things that Donald Trump might try to do if he wins the presidency, and that's it. And if you are thinking, gosh, that sounds nuts, I'm sure that the Supreme Court wouldn't allow that to happen. I would encourage you to revisit that assumption because, of course, Donald Trump got 3 Supreme Court nominees during his single term in office. And there are 3 additional Republican nominees on the court as well. And at least 2 of them already signaled support for the idea that they think the Comstock Act, that 1873 Victorian era law, can be used as an abortion ban. That is terrifying. So that is the reproductive freedom angle. So the second thing that I had wanted to touch upon is the vision for Project 2025, which is to use the powerful parts of the federal government to basically go after perceived enemies and political opponents. Of course, this is something that Donald Trump has also embraced support for, right? 2016, he famously ran on the campaign of lock her up. Now, right, he is already threatening, right, to throw in jail and try to prosecute people who, help people vote in the election, or people who criticize the Trump campaign's tactics for suppressing the vote or flirting with the idea of another coup. He literally posted on Truth Social a promise/pledge to order the federal government to basically go after his critics and political opponents. This too is something that is really evident in Project 2025. One of the things that Project 2025 calls for is to eliminate the firewall that currently exists between the Department of Justice, which is basically the federal prosecutors of the federal government. They want to say, there's no longer much separation between those federal prosecutors at the Department of Justice and the White House. What does that mean? It means the White House now has free reign to start ordering the federal prosecutors, go prosecute this person, go investigate this person, don't investigate this person, don't prosecute that person. And again, they're not just envisioning like insulating themselves and their allies from liability. Everybody knows that if Donald Trump is elected president, he's going to immediately order the federal prosecutions against him to end. But he is also thinking about going out and ordering prosecutors to begin prosecutions of other people. This is utterly terrifying, particularly when you couple it with the Supreme Court's decision in the presidential immunity case. There, the Supreme Court said presidents cannot be subject to criminal laws for exercising core presidential powers. And what did they define as core presidential powers? Investigations and prosecutions. The court literally said, even though the president might have ordered the Department of Justice to conduct a sham investigation for an improper purpose, still the president can't be prosecuted for engaging in that conduct. So that is just a tip of the iceberg as far as what they might do, as far as leveraging all of the massive powers of the federal government to go after people they disagree with or people who criticize them. The third category that I wanted to touch on is basically their vision for dismantling the federal government as we know it. There are so many different parts of this aspect of what I am concerned about, but for now, I'll just talk about 2 of them. One is literally one of the platforms on Project 2025 is to dismantle the administrative state. What is the administrative state? Those are the institutions that make our water clean, our air clean, our food safe, and that protect consumers from fraud and abuse. When they say they want to dismantle the administrative state, what are they saying? Abolish the Department of Education, right? Like literally the institution that helps make public schools run. They want to dismantle the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the agency that protects consumers from abusive fraud and other market practices that contributed to the Great Recession. They would like to end the Environmental Protection Agency or substantially limit it, because who likes clean air and who needs to see amidst the smog? That's what they are talking about when they say, let's dismantle the administrative state. Let's get rid of all of these agencies that are acting in the public interest, that are trying to make our world better and safe for everybody. In addition to, the general plans to kind of dismantle the administrative state, they also have some really particular wild ones. So I'm going to highlight one and then happy to answer any questions, or I can continue talking if that's what you prefer. But I think the craziest, if I had to choose, idea that they have for dismantling the federal government is with respect to the Federal Reserve Board. The Federal Reserve Board, is of course the major federal financial institution, that loans money to banks, that insures banks, that ensures that banks have enough money so that they can actually meet the deposits, right? And actually pay people back when they try to withdraw money out of their account. They are also the institution that sets interest rates. They set the monetary policy of the United States. Well, Project 2025 and Elon Musk and Donald Trump think they know better than the Fed. And so one of the proposals in Project 2025 is literally to abolish the Federal Reserve Board in its oversight of banking and monetary policy. That is, they would prefer just to allow Elon Musk to start making his own currency, like Musk bucks, and prefer to let all of the finance bros and crypto bros just to make their own currency, because that worked out so well and couldn't possibly lead to another economic catastrophe. So when you are thinking about what exactly are the plans to stabilize the economy and make it easier for people to afford food, gas, housing? Well, literally their first proposal for the Federal Reserve Board is to blow it up and ensure there is no central institution to stabilize the economy. Their second best proposal would be to say, well, maybe let's kind of keep the Federal Reserve Board, but you know what they shouldn't care about? Full employment. That is, we're not going to ask the Federal Reserve Board to care about whether people have jobs. This is, again, unhinged and completely divorced from people's everyday lives and what they need. So those are three of the things that I had wanted to highlight. The plans to dismantle the federal government, plans to use the government to go after perceived enemies, and of course, their obsession with uteruses and wombs. They just can't get over it. So I'm happy to talk about anything else that might be of interest, or again, I can continue rattling off crazy shit from Project 2025, whatever you all would prefer.
We do love hearing you describe the crazy shit from Project 2025. So if those attending have questions, drop them in the chat. I think, should we just hit this? Or no, wait, which one? This one.
Yeah. This is our most important question, and then we can go back to the crazy stuff.
Yeah. So just to give you background, we're knitters. We have a knitting app. All these people here are knitters, and we're all making these very cute t-shirts to support our favorite candidate. And, I think for us, one thing that we are comfortable in is using our knitting as a way to engage people in conversation, to express ourselves. Do you have any thoughts about what the average knitter can do to promote any kind of reform or change at any level of government, from local to national, beyond just knitting and beyond just voting?
Yeah, so I'll rattle off a few, and these are just the things that immediately come to mind. First, I think that like part of what is amazing about knitting is building a community, right? And the art form. And I think both of those things can be tools to make change. Of course, like you all have your own community of knitters. My guess is you probably know people who also knit in other aspects of your life or in other parts of your life. You know, part of, or at least one of the main things that I have in my life that builds community, at least when I'm not recuperating from a broken elbow, is I love to swim. And so that's part of like my big community. And so I talk to people I swim with about the election because like they already have like a high degree of tolerance for me because we have swimming in common. And so if you have, you know, something in common with people, that can be a bridge, right, to talking about things that you might not have in common, right? So like start easy, right, and then go bigger is, you know, the advice I would say about leveraging existing communities in order to try to drive change, turnout, and whatnot. The other part I mentioned about knitting is, of course, you know, the artwork. And I think that in an era of social media, you know, like I know this is different than knitting, but like a cross stitch, right, with like a campaign slogan or a particular phrase that is associated with the campaign or an image, you know, that is associated with the campaign or something about freedom, you know, sharing that can be something that gets amplified, you know, that gets people energized and again, gets people in the, you know, arts community kind of more excited about this movement. So that's one thing that I think is, you know, more specific to knitting. Beyond that, you know, of course, there are efforts underway to help out the campaign in different ways. One of those is door knocking. You know, if you don't have the resources to contribute to, you know, $1 here, $1 there to the Harris Victory Fund, door knocking is canvassing the most effective way to turn out votes and to change minds. You know, I have set myself a goal of like every week I do at least one event like this for Harris and at least 1 hour of canvassing in Michigan suburbs. I am obviously a very white woman. And so I go to the very white suburbs of Michigan and try to talk to people who might not be on the same page as me, but like see some sort of like connection with me, and talk to them about the stakes of the upcoming election and, you know, why I am voting for Harris and why I am going door to door. So those are things you can do, you know, with time rather than money. Of course, if you also have money, you know, donating to the campaign further in advance is super helpful. Down ballot races are exceptionally important, both at the federal level and at the state and local level. You know, Vice President Harris is only going to be able to govern, is only going to be able to do some of the monumental things she has promised, like signing a federal law, securing reproductive freedom, like advancing a caregiving agenda, you know, protections for domestic workers and supporting people who care for friends and family members. She's only going to be able to do that if Democrats win the House and the Senate. So contributing to those races and helping turn out for those races as well. At the state and local level, it is also super important. These races can be won by super small margins of votes. You know, the Arizona Attorney General race was won by a few hundred votes. A North Carolina Supreme Court race was won by less than 1,000 votes. Right. So educating yourselves about who your state and local politicians are, both in state legislatures, which are super important. State legislatures set the rules about who can vote and the districts in a given state that determine who gets power. State judges are also super important. They are going to hear the vast number of cases, you know, within our judicial system. And so figuring out who those people are, and if you can get people excited about those candidates too, that's also great.
Awesome.
You don't have to answer if it's a weird, awkward question, but like a lot of us are introverts, and I'm trying to imagine myself going and knocking on a door. Like, how do you start? Like, what do you start with? Is there an easy way to start, or you just have to do it?
So I, believe it or not, am also an introvert.
I do believe it.
Yeah, so I find podcasting and these things like easier because, you know, I don't actually have to have those like awkward moments of like, well, like, what are we talking about? / can I leave now and whatnot? So I don't have, you know, like a great spiel other than, you know, this is probably why I don't do it more than, at least an hour a week. But, I'll usually say like, hey, I am going door to door because I really wanted to talk to you about the upcoming election. Do you have a few moments? And like give them an out to say no. And then, if they give me an in at all, I'll try to use the immediate next sentence to like say something about why it's important to me. So I talk about the fact that like I have needed emergency care and like I don't want that to disappear in the next presidential administration. I talk about medical debt. And, I talk about how, my grandparents didn't graduate high school and they grew up in a world like without reproductive freedom protections and were able to get by because they were both part of unions. They worked at a power company and they worked at the post office. And, even without high school degrees, like they were able to raise a family and make a sustainable living, and preserving those opportunities for everyone is, important to me because I saw like how that enables people to lead wonderful lives and, do kind of whatever they want in life, no matter, what their background is. So yeah, I also see in the chat, it's easier to go in pairs. I also sometimes bring my dog. She's a miniature golden doodle, and she also makes me look less scary and less threatening. And I usually put a little bandana on her that either says vote or has Kamala Harris's face on it.
This is excellent tips.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit later about what we found. So we went out and tried to do our own micro voter registration drive, and so we'll share with people later kind of our findings so far and how we're going to iterate next time.
Yeah.
So, but we won't take that time right now to do that. So, did you have?
No, I would just say I think that was excellent advice. I think we would each, if we were going to try to, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try and knock on doors. And I think we each just need to make it really personal. And if you have your little script of why it's important to vote, that just can spill over to any accidental conversation you have anywhere where you encounter someone. So I think like making your own little personal script of why.
I talked to my physical therapist about the election. So, this person is literally in charge of rehabbing my elbow. And still I was willing to be like, so you're voting for Kamala, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I talked to my nurse practitioner last week.
There you go.
She goes like, I don't feel like I'm educated enough to vote. I'm like, this is a problem.
Because, there are other people who it's never even occurred to them. They're not educated enough to vote.
Yeah.
So.
Well, this is awesome. We told you that we would hold you here for about 30 minutes, and your 30 minutes has expired.
You are welcome to stay should you choose, but we don't want to keep you because we know you are a very, very busy person.
I do need to bounce for another Zoom.
Yes.
But thank you all so much for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
Super inspirational.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Bye, Leah.
Bye.
So excited. All right. Wonderful.
And it's not over. We also have our other very special guest tonight, Kim, with Kim Dyes Yarn. If you guys have been around with Neutrino very long, we work with Kim several other times. We love her. We have lots of things in common with Kim. The first and foremost being her beautiful yarn. So Kim, one thing we want to talk about is our recent collaboration where you dyed a special colorway for Barbara Kingsolver. And then we are also going to talk about our next collaboration, which is going to go in the mail this week. But before we do that, do you want to tell us why you feel like this election is really important?
Sure. Back in the pandemic, we were all kind of living in that horrible time. And I was going to the post office almost every day to drop off packages because everyone was using a lot of yarn during the pandemic. And so I was there all the time. And every single time I would be there, I would notice another person who was there dropping off huge numbers of packages that were wrapped in like these patriotic poly mailers, and they looked like books. And she would drop off hundreds and hundreds. And so I got curious to see what she was doing there all the time, dropping off so many of these books. And it was an organization, a right-wing organization, that was targeting and training people to run for local elections and to take over the school boards, the town councils, all the local races they could run in. And so then I knew, you know, they're organized, they're determined, and we've seen some of it. I live in Loudoun County, Virginia, which was kind of like, we were in the news a lot because they tried to claim that we were teaching the kids in the schools critical race theory. And so Fox News loved Loudoun County. They loved it. We had people invading the school board meetings who didn't live in the area, terrorizing board members, terrorizing teachers and administrators. I have a son who's currently in school. Well, he's student teaching right now to be a teacher. And it's very just personal to me that they have turned people against people who are underpaid, work way more than they should for this position because they love these kids. They love their jobs. And wasting our tax dollars on court battles over non-existent problems. So I knew they were going to be extremely motivated to take over wherever they could from the top down. And so when Joe Biden was elected, it was such a relief, but you know they're not giving up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why this is so important to me. Just one, I am a woman. I am, you know, I don't look like a white lady. I was a target of racism during COVID because, you know, anyone who looked Asian was a target.
Yeah.
So there's lots of many different reasons, but it's mostly because I'm worried about our kids, our future. Safety in schools is so, you know, so important. We just had another horrible shooting. And, you know, I will be worrying every day about my son in a school. So that's just my personal message. I did, when we first moved to Virginia was during the Obama's second campaign to be reelected. And we as a family canvassed because we were new to the area. We didn't know very many people. And we canvassed every single weekend for 2 months up to the election. We knocked on doors every single weekend. And it was just so affirming. The people want what we want. We want fairness. We want equality. We want good schools. We want good lives, good jobs. And that's, you know, there's nothing like knocking on those doors and just having people repeat back to you what you feel.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you could be nervous, but they weren't sending you to hostile homes. They were sending you to places with carefully curated lists of people just to make sure they were registered, that they knew how to register, that they had a plan to vote, that they had voted. So, you know, they're not putting you out there for target practice.
Yeah.
They're just they're making it easy for you. And if you go in pairs, which I did sometimes, I would, like if my husband or my kids couldn't make it, I would go with someone else from the campaign office. And you go in pairs so you're safe. And you know, you're there to back each other up. So I suggest if you can, try it.
Yeah.
If you can't, you can always sit and do text messages, or you could do the postcards.
So, I mean, I think that's a good segue, do you think, to talk about? No? Yeah, go ahead. Oh, so Andrea and I, there is an organization that I want to tell everybody here about, and I want you guys to check it out if you're willing. It's called Field Team 6, and they do, they call it Voter Drive in a Box, or voter registration drive in a box. It's not really a literal box, but they give you a toolkit with everything you need to conduct a voter registration drive. You just go with your sister or a friend. Again, recommend going with someone. It's going to make it more fun and make you look more approachable. 1 second. Oh boy, a lot of people coming late. But yeah, so we went. They have their target states that they're targeting. I'm proud to say Ohio is one of them. Andrea came up with a great slogan. We want to make Ohio swing again. And because it used to be a swing state, it's kind of fallen out of that. We both left. We don't live here anymore. For those who missed it, we're in Ohio visiting our parents right now. But it felt kind of scary. We didn't have success. We didn't get anyone registered.
But it was a very small community college.
We learned a lot. So Field Team 6 suggests that you go. So their whole thing, you are 100% allowed to hold a partisan voter registration drive. Like, you can be biased. You just have to register. If a Republican wants to register, you have to register them as well. But their whole strategy is, here's how you can target Democratic voters or voters who are likely to vote Democrat. And so their best spot, they always say, is a community college. We went to the community college in our hometown where we both went when we were in high school. Unfortunately, it was really small and a little bit too adult education oriented. So we didn't even find our target. Our goal was to register young women. But yeah, and you lead off with a question, and according to them, their best results come from asking a question like, do you want to save the world from Trumpism? Because it puts that person in the hero position, and it quickly gives them the choice. You're not trying to trick them. You're saying, look, I'm looking to register people who are.
Well, you haven't even said what you're doing. Yeah. So that way, if somebody's like, no, I love Trump, then you can be just like, okay, it was nice to meet you.
Cool, have a great day.
And if they're like, yeah, Trump is an asshole, you can be like, well, do you want to know the first thing you can do? And that is
the first and easiest. Yep.
Oh.
So anyway, we're going to strongly recommend that everybody go check out Field Team 6.
And we can send a link.
We'll put it in the notes in the YouTube when we upload it too. But yeah, and then just find a friend or a partner or a dog if that's what you got. I think Leah is exactly right. Dogs are very approachable. How many times do you go up to and talk to some creepy dude that you would never talk to because his dog is cute?
Last night.
I know, last night.
Yep.
So anyway, and just a reminder, we're doing democracy points as a part of this knit along. So you do get democracy points, and you can win some of the beautiful yarn that Kim has dyed for us. Yeah, so registering voters gets you the most points of.
Although I think we should add canvassing to the list. Allison and I spent probably, almost an hour at this community college, and we registered 0 voters. So that's why we decided 40 points seems fair. If you can register a voter, that should be worth a lot of points, because where we were at, it wasn't easy. But we do suggest from our learning experience that you find a more populated place. So if your community college is also really dead, Walmart parking lot.
I took my mom to Walmart today during the day, like it was early afternoon. I saw so many young women that I thought looked perfect to target, but my mom was with me, so I was like, well, she'll talk about registering Republicans. So anyway,
so that's just a little bit about things you can do.
Yeah, she just coughed.
Sorry. Because one thing we wanted to do with this knit along, and I'm not criticizing any other movement, but I think sometimes we're like, I'm knitting this thing and that's going to make a difference. And I mean, I'm an introvert. She's an introvert. Leah's an introvert. Kim's probably an introvert too. It's like Michelle Obama told us, do something. You have to do something. And knitting is something, because you can be sitting there knitting and someone is going to ask you what you're knitting. And that's what happened to me in the Atlanta airport. I got to have 6 conversations with people because I was knitting something, and they all did happen to be positive. They won't always be positive, and that's okay. The last time that guy was Elon Musk's biggest apologist, I was just like, okay, dude, see you later.
Yeah.
But yeah, we really want to challenge all of us, including ourselves, to take actionable steps to really make a difference. We've written postcards in the past. Allison's done text banking in the past. Those are kind of lower effect.
Yeah, like they're things to do. I do believe that they can have an impact.
They do have an impact, but percentage wise, if you are actually having a conversation if you make it personal, if it's relational, it's almost certain to have a much bigger impact if you can make yourself do it. And not everyone can make themselves.
Yeah,
I'm not sure I can make myself.
No, and
I'm gonna try.
We're not judging anyone who can.
But I will say that if you are not comfortable talking about platform points, being that aggressive, knocking on doors in the final weeks of the campaigns before the election, just to make sure people will go vote, is really important.
Yeah.
I mean, the day of election day, they still need people to make sure the people who said they were going to vote went and voted.
Yeah.
And
That's
make sure
awesome.
they have a ride, make sure they know where their polling place is, and that they've checked their registration and that they're still active. So those are all really important things to do, because people will have the best intentions and then forget to vote,
Or we all know how busy life gets, and so
Mhm.
many states make it hard. I live in Washington, where it is all mail-in ballots, and we have an incredible voter turnout because of that.
Mhm.
And so it's easy for me, but in states like Ohio, if you want an absentee ballot, you have to request it for every election you want it. You can't just say, "Oh, look, I'm a shut-in, I don't get out. Just send me absentee ballots all the time."
Yeah.
Yeah, and somebody's putting in the comments, asking people about their voting plan.
Yeah.
That's a great thing to do,
Mhm.
because it does make you think through your day, right? Like, okay, how am I going to do that? And if I have cats that need child care or cat care, or children who need cat care or child care, how am I going to manage that?
Yeah. Well, we have early voting here in Virginia.
Yeah.
So just talk to as many people as you can. If you have early voting in your state, get that ballot sent in, or go to the polling place and vote early. It really helps the campaigns figure out where they need to target with their money too. So
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, and there were just some great quotes in the chat there. First of all, more are coming in. First of all, I love that Liz is at Kent State, where they're doing a Kent State Votes campaign. That's awesome. Go Ohio. And Shannon had this great quote from Seth Godin that says, "The cost of being wrong is worse than the cost of doing nothing." And isn't that the truth? Like that. In fact, that's why Andrea and I said, because when we started this, like, for those who don't realize it, we turned this thing around so fast. We skipped all these things we normally do to get it out there quickly, because we felt like it's so important to capitalize on the joy and the hope that we all feel right now, and keep that energy rolling so people can't steal that from us. And I think that's what we talked about. We said, I don't want this to be the year that we look back and we said, well, we didn't do it because it was so much work, and we already had so much work. We just couldn't do it. Like, I don't want that to be my story.
And we have to say that it was really scary, because we knew we were going to get a lot of hate from people.
We do.
But I mean, you guys know how it is. But what we didn't expect is that the community would rally around us as much as we would have loved to have 1,000 people doing this, but we're so small. We're not like Andrea, whoever. I'm just Andrea Call.
The other Andrea.
I called myself the other Andrea. We knew it wasn't going to be a huge, but it is. We're so happy with as many people as turned out. And it's because people like Kim helped cross promote it. And a bunch of people we don't know who shared this. We just know like there were thousands of shares. And I don't know why Instagram wasn't showing us who was sharing it, where they were sharing it, but thousands of people shared about it. Hundreds of people have joined it. I am optimistic that there could be 100 people show up at Rhinebeck with the sweater on.
We were thinking, how incredible would it be to get 200 people at Rhinebeck wearing this tee?
Even, I'm sure we can get 50. It's going to be amazing to walk around together and have her with us, because it's easy to tweet.
It is.
It takes a couple seconds. But when you look at the sweater and hundreds or 50 or however many people wearing it, where each of us spent 50 hours or whatever making it, that's That's amazing. That's a lot more than a million tweets, in my opinion.
Awesome. And I'm just looking at the comments about how people have been sharing it at their yarn shops, and that Katie is targeting 75. Like,
Katie.
that's awesome. And also, you guys, we've knit 4 already, but there are only 2 of us. So if you have a friend who hasn't knitted and needs to borrow one of ours,
we also thought about selling them and, you know, donating that money too.
also, here's another tangent. We got a comment today from somebody who said that they would never knit a sweater with Kamala Harris's face on it, and that they noticed that we didn't have one for Trump, and that was just wrong. And so I had this genius idea. Well, maybe not genius, but I thought, how fun would it be to do one with Trump's ugly mug on it, and donate all of the proceeds to Kamala's campaign, and also call it, like, you know, we have the We Choose Freedom knit along. We could call it the We Choose Tyranny knit along, or something like that. And we could put some like words in there too, and they'd be all hateful. But I'm not going to do that. Who has the time? Well, I loved it that it's just wrong. We don't have one for Trump. Aww.
Well, they're welcome to make their own, right?
Yes, exactly. Do it yourself.
I know. Poor little Trump gets his feelings.
I know his
hurt.
platform's not big enough. He's only got Elon helping him. What are we doing helping her?
Anyway, sorry.
He would probably sue them actually for using his image.
Yeah.
Kim, can
Mhm.
we turn to yarn for a second?
Sure. Mhm.
So, and then I do want to end by talking really briefly about the first couple chapters of our book, if anyone else is reading it. And if you're not, I'm on my second run through. It's really great. But Kim, one thing we want to give away to anybody. So we are going to help you guys tally up your democracy points, and we're just going to have you post them on Instagram and tag us. And that's how we're going to try to keep track of everything. But we are going to give away prizes for people that earn the most points for democracy. But let's keep in mind, the real goal is democracy. So
That's
even
right.
if you don't win the contest and we win our democracy, we win.
Yeah, we all win.
But one thing we want to give away is some of Kim's yarn. Kim did a really beautiful set of 3 colors that was inspired by Barbara Kingsolver's book,
Prodigal
Summer, which our retreat was themed around that. And we have a bundle or 2 of that left. And so one of the prizes we're going to give away to people in this knit along is a bundle of Kim's beautiful yarn. It's this really awesome purple and this peach, and then this speckly peach purple. And I mean, I love it so much. It is a really perfect color combo.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we have other prizes too for the knit along. But we also have a collaboration with Kim.
Yes. And just, so we're in Ohio. I'm going to be home on Sunday, and on Monday and Tuesday, I'm going to be shipping out our new release that is still secret, but it's in Kim's yarn, and it's 2 skeins of yarn, a sock yarn held double with a mohair. And this is part of our Sprouts Club, and some of our Sprouts are here. So we're not going to show it. We're not going to talk about it because it's a surprise. But if anyone wants to join Sprouts,
And
you would be joining for next month, but we can give you a special deal on this month, which would include Kim's yarn.
Yeah.
So
beautiful.
email us, or we can send you an email.
Yeah.
But our Sprouts community is the best thing we do.
For sure. I mean, this is pretty awesome too.
Yes.
But
yes.
no offense to you guys. But our Sprouts are the reason we're still in
Yes,
business.
yes. Well, you guys are also still the reason we're in business, because this month was really important to us, and you guys helped us keep in business this month. So,
Hey, Andrea.
Yeah.
Sorry, somebody in the chat asked, what is Sprouts?
So Sprouts is our monthly club. There are 3 levels that you can join. Every club comes with knit nights like this. All of our Sprouts got to come to this for free, even if they're not knitting the t-shirt. So you get your knit nights, which is a community. You get a pattern every month. And any classes, like if we're doing a color work class, we're going to be doing a brioche class. Oh, it's brioche. This month is brioche with Kim's yarn. Sorry, that's not a big surprise. But so like we're going to be doing a brioche class. Sprouts get all that for free. Plus, if they want to, they can add on the yarn.
Yeah, and you get, I'm going to be honest, you get a really incredible deal most of the time if you add on the yarn.
Yeah.
Usually every monthly subscription is about the cost of the yarn.
And
So-
the website says Sprouts is sold out and waitlisted. We can fix that because we can open up spots for next month. And we did order a little extra for this month. So we can get you in if you want to.
So Susan, if you want to sign up, just email us at
Yeah, or-
support@neutrino.com. And I'll send you a link so you can sign up if you want. And a coupon code.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're all friends here. Oh, Amy. I didn't know Amy Lynn was here. Amy says it's her favorite monthly present to herself. And it's true. It's my favorite monthly present to ourselves.
And a bunch of our Sprouts will be at Rhinebeck. And so if you guys are doing the knit along, you will get to meet the Sprouts community and be part of it, at least for the month of October. I will say it's not us, but our Sprouts are the most welcoming group of people ever. They're incredible. Okay.
Right.
So I do want to end by at least talking very briefly about Kamala's autobiography. I listened to it on Audible, which she narrates, and I loved it. I loved listening to her tell her own story. And then the physical book I got so I could take notes in it because I do like taking notes. And there's all these pictures.
Oh, the
Where are the pictures? Where are they?
They're in the
Anyway,
book.
there's two whole big sets of pictures from her life.
Yeah, that you don't get with the audiobook.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there are like close to 40 pages of pictures or something in this book. And so we were supposed to talk about the first two chapters, which cover the introduction, covers her election to Senate, which was also when Hillary lost. And that is really kind of hard to remember, but also how Kamala handled that moment when she said, "What are we going to do? This is when we fight." And so I love that theme from 2016 is just carrying on. That's her theme. We have to fight. She's a fighter. And then the first chapter is about her growing up and how her mom always just inspired in her this work ethic and was always challenging her. Like if there was a bad situation that Kamala didn't like, what did you do? And then the second chapter is when she comes and gets her law degree and starts working as a prosecutor and then runs for the district attorney at the local level. And my favorite scene in that chapter is when she's running her first campaign. She uses an ironing board.
Oh, yeah.
And she takes it to the grocery store and she's like, it's the easiest way to set up a desk. So she takes an ironing board so she can put her little pamphlets there because she made these little easy to understand 1-page pamphlets of what she was going to do. And she hangs a sign with duct tape behind her. And I was like, that's my kind of person.
Yeah.
Like she's just doing this very
real.
It's all her. She's doing it all herself.
Very authentic.
I mean, the thing that came through to me in the first two chapters of the book was just how she is a fighter. She's always been fighting. And it is hard work. And she's a hard worker. And she is prepared to do the work.
And I'm just going to say, because we all know, and my own bias here, that women have to work 10 times as hard in many of these situations. And I think politics is one of them. Law is definitely one of them. One of the things we didn't say about Leah Littman is that she's been a part of setting up this organization to increase the representation of women in legal organizations. Jean.
I didn't know that, Jean. That's great. So apparently the Iron Board campaigning is popular in San Francisco.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Well, I actually think if I try to do another voter registration, I might break with the tips that Field Team 6 was giving out. I might actually set up a little ironing board because I do good with pamphlets.
Yeah. Well, and also I think there's a lot to being true to who you are, right?
Yeah.
Like Andrea is just fun and friendly, and that comes through when she talks to people, and I'm just, me. So I come off as friendly because I'm next to her.
Oh, whatever.
But yeah. Anyway.
Anyway, we're running a little late because we had really amazing special guests this week. Next week, we're going to have more special guests.
Who do we have next week?
I think Gigi is Gail.
Gay Gillespie.
Yeah, Gigi's coming next week. And we also have Robin with Birch Hollow Fibers, another one of our yarn partners for the kits. I'm actually knitting. Sorry, Kim. Allison's knitting in your yarn. I'm knitting in the Birch Hollow right now.
Yeah.
And then our last week, we also have more special guests lined up.
So yeah, we clearly need more than an hour, but whatever. It's awesome. So
And we
Is
would
that
like
it?
to say that we're so grateful for everyone who's joining us. If you have any questions, always feel free to email support@neutrino.com. That's the easiest way to get in touch with us because she'll handle it. If you DM us on Instagram, I'm going to try.
There's no telling. Also, sometimes Instagram locks us out. so-
Instagram forced us out and we took 3
Yeah.
hours getting back.
Yeah. Also, let's see. Yeah, it's
yes,
great.
Kim,
It's
your
great.
story about the post office. That's scary. All these people doing all that, and who's going to
Well-
know except Kim, who happened to be there mailing yarn.
And I'm just,
Yeah, I was just being nosy looking at who was sending all these packages.
it's true. And I gotta say, it's too easy to get complacent. And if
Mhm.
there's one thing the far right has done well, it's not being complacent.
Yeah.
Like
Mm-mm.
they took away rights that I had when I was born. And that is the weirdest, creepiest, most Gilead feeling that I've had. And I'm not complacent anymore.
But it's easy to drive people with fear.
It's true.
And I think we're all really afraid right now. So maybe a lot of us are now being driven by fear. But how awesome is it that she's also driving us with joy? Like it feels like the Obama era where we can
Look.
feel like
Look, there she is.
we can feel like freedom and hope and love and joy are things that our country still wants.
Yeah.
At least a good majority of our
Some of
country.
us, yeah.
One thing that we like to point out, and then we can close. The vocal parts of our electorate are the far right
Yeah.
and the moderate to far left. Because we're the ones that follow the basketball games, right? Like we
Super
are the
fans.
super fans. This is our team. We're cheering for it. But research has shown close to 70% of America is somewhere in the middle. And they feel disenfranchised. They feel like they don't know what's going on. They feel like it's divisive.
That
And
their vote doesn't count.
and so these are the people we really need to just remember that 70% of the people around you, depending on where you live,
7 out of 10.
are probably unengaged. And if you are able to say to them, well, this is why it matters to me, that might be enough to like actually be like, well, now I feel like I know enough that maybe I should vote. Like
yeah.
it might not take a lot.
And like our young cousin who has a young family, like she's got a husband who's a second generation immigrant, and none of them are registered to vote. And it's like it's all of those things. And so our goal is if we can get her to vote,
Yeah.
like that's the thing.
That's who our poster child is. We got her on our
Yes. Thank you guys so much for being here. Kim,
Thank you.
thank you. We are so thrilled to
So
collaborate with you every time. You
Well, thank
do
you. You
amazing
guys are the
things.
best.
You're the best.
Yeah.
You're the best.
Don't forget, vote Clinton Gore 96.
We'll be talking more about the sign.
And the other sign that might be missing from our parents' front yard.
Love
Okay.
it.
All right.
Bye, everyone.